Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my name is Varis Teivāns. I'm a technical director at CERT.LV. I'll share some of our experience and some provocative thoughts on topics like active cyber defense and our experience together with our Canadian colleagues on threat hunting operations that we conduct for more than 3 years already. What are the results? What might be chances to practice these active cyber defense attempts, and how they look like, what kind of results they bring. So you'll probably see that I'm not the diplomat, and if you observe how the European Union sometimes reacts on certain events, keyword expressing concern is very popular. So we sometimes try to go beyond that, and this is what I will be describing during my talk. So to conduct active cyber defense practices, you probably need some tools, services, procedures available to support hunt forward missions. So basically, threat hunting also could be defined as a active cyber defense. It depends how you do it, and basically respond to the threats that you observe. Obviously, authority to support the mission. So you have to have some legal framework to support the mission, so that what you do, you don't get sued, etc., etc. So it doesn't always mean that it has to be offensive operations included in active cyber defense. Environment where defenders use the opportunities if they present themselves. So we'll talk about a couple of them, but it's not only again not only legal framework, but also environment in a team that you actually support those opportunities to be explored. And then the goal would be disrupt the threats, create deception scenarios. We'll talk on a couple of them. So Robert just described how they are trying to monitor the botnets, how to do the disruption. DGA algorithms mentioned, right? So we'll look on some things on that part as well. And the final result will be probably produce cyber threat intelligence to protect Latvia and protect others. So a couple of those provocative thoughts and ideas going on active cyber defense. So in this example, we can see very basic, simple remote code or remote command execution web shell on a targeted system. In this case, it was located in Latvia. This particular system was used by Russian threat actors to conduct offensive cyber operations targeting Ukrainian critical infrastructure. So basically attacking Ukraine through Latvia. So when you investigate such a thing, one approach would be probably to go through law enforcement, get their hands on the system, conduct the forensic analysis, etc., etc. Sometimes it's not possible, even though it's located somewhere in your country. So speculative question would be, would you go after the tools that have been deployed by the threat actor? Would you use the opportunity to interrogate the system, to get the cyber threat intelligence from the system to help your country and maybe help others as well? Would you judge if Ukrainians would do that in your country? The system is compromised by the threat actor. Ukraine is a state that is fighting for its existence. Maybe they could use that approach to attempt to gain more intelligence on what the threat actor is doing without doing any harm to the system, which again is very slippery slope, right? So you have to understand that it's in most cases illegal, but it could be a component of active cyber defense. So in this case, I'm not disclosing how exactly we found out the information, but eventually we did the analysis of the targeted system. We found out very valuable information that the SSH tunneling was used, the FRP proxy software was used, Ligolo, again for basically tunneling the attacks from Russia to Ukraine via Latvia was used to conduct these cyber operations. The threat actor, at least the technical attribution, is attributed to Sandworm. So it's Russian state-supported cyber operation. Besides the tools, we also found some probably might be useful information on networks used by the threat actor, the history, and etc., etc. So through some activities that might be described as active cyber defense, you gain also cyber threat intelligence to protect your environment. So there are also other practices on active cyber defense called deception environments. We also have some experience with that. I would say it's an early stage, but still very useful results are gained from this approach. So basically what it means, you create a small or sometimes bigger environment that mimics a real corporate network with all the bells and whistles attached to it. Active Directory, user systems, some servers, file server, etc., etc., so that when the attacker lands on the first workstation, for example, they have an impression that it's a real environment and they would be interested to explore further. Why we are interested so that they explore further is that we can gain very valuable information on their tools, tactics, procedures, what they do after the initial infection. So it's not only the malware sample anymore, it's their actions, interests, and probably more. So the predator becomes the prey. So another approach might be if you have access to the targeted system, I mean the infected system by the threat actor, you could patch the threat actor tools, manipulate the code, inject something of yours to, again, gain better knowledge on their interests, operations, create logging opportunities, etc., etc., without doing any harm to the targeted system for some period of time, but gaining valuable information. Robert just mentioned the DGAs and the domain infrastructure that in most cases attackers have to rely on, and especially with DGAs, usually they do not register all the domains. So you have an opportunity as a defender to buy some of them, to legitimately register them. And then you could have some additional visibility on how the botnet looks like, how the attack infrastructure behaves, etc., etc. Sometimes it's not that simple that you right away get all the juicy parts. You have to deal with encryption and some other stuff, but still component of active cyber defense. It's very, very useful also because sometimes, if done right, it works as a deterrent. So it becomes much more expensive for the threat actor to conduct such a things. They identify that you have played with them for some time. In this particular example, it was APT 28 attempt to infiltrate our government systems. So what we did, we took the sample, detonated the sample in a deception environment, and the threat actor spent at least a week while they were lurking around, and when they understood it's a deception environment, we basically wasted their whole week. Maybe it was one person, maybe it was the whole group. But again, what we gain from that activity is additional information, which is again not only malware sample, command and control infrastructure, but what they did. And this is also basically a free of charge, if you will, test of your security operations center. So if you have some defense mechanisms in place, you can also, after these kind of activities on deception environment, detonate them and test, would you be able to detect them if that would be the real deal in your environment? So things like basic reconnaissance task list, IP config, system info, etc. Very basic, probably seen very much across the spectrum, but AD Explorer is again something very specific that they rely on apparently. They download the legitimate tool to explore how the Active Directory looks like. They try to enumerate it with, and it's again a little piece, but still valuable information on how to defend your network and probably spot the attacker in action. Another side product of such an activity is IOCs, or indicators of compromise, that you can share with your trusted partners, help protect others. So not only hashes of malware samples, but also domains, attack infrastructure, IP addresses involved from where the attacker operates, commands executed on the infected host, etc., etc. Probably additional tools downloaded throughout the process. It builds a picture and portfolio of threat actor activities, and sometimes it even helps to attribute. And here I'm talking about just a technical attribution, not going deeper. So, and you really know when you have kind of touched on nerves of those threat actors when they start to send you these kind of memes instead of last payload. So in this case, it's again a Russian cyber operation targeting Latvia, but not only Latvia, but it was widespread across the NATO states. And what we did, we also played with it for a couple of days, and on the third day, the operator understood that it's a deception environment. So they were probably angry, and this is the meme that was sent as a payload instead of malware on the third stage of delivery to kind of show their attitude. I would say it's not very common to see such things from state-sponsored threat actors, but still. Sometimes blaming, naming, and shaming works. With Russian threat actors, it honestly doesn't seem like. I think sometimes they even are feeding on it and kind of like that they are being mentioned. In this case, I'm emphasizing this operator called Stark Industry Solutions, sometimes it's Starknet. They go also by other names, but the idea of this company is it looks like they act as a cover for Russian cyber operations across Europe. They registered. For some reason, they stay active, and no one is taking them down like with global impact. But their goal, it seems to be able to have domestic presence. So they register networks across Europe, and when you as a defender, when you introduce geo-blocking, it was also mentioned by the previous presenter, so when you receive an attack, if you know that your services are primarily targeted for your constituency in your country, you could introduce a geo-blocking so that the other countries, and if attacks are originating from other states, they do not land on your infrastructure, and basically you can still provide services to your citizens. In this case, they can override that because they have presence in Latvia, in this case. And also, if you just take a quick look on what the Cloudflare statistics show, you can see the spike. So up until this spike, they were using their global networks, attacking Latvian infrastructure. As soon as the hosting company or ISP introduced geo-blocking, they turned to Latvian networks to override the geo-blocking attempts. So you can see that the origination was Latvia in this case. Again, it's probably also worth analyzing on the legal perspective why they are still operating, but I think it's a quite interesting observation. So now to threat hunting. Threat hunting is a practice where you basically go into the infrastructure, you interrogate the systems, you build a picture of the environment and try to understand what is the current security posture, are they infected or not, etc., etc. And this is something that we heavily rely on when we try to make Latvia a difficult target for the threat actor. So this is what is basically our goal, to become a difficult target for the threat actor. And here I'd like to emphasize how quickly our partners in Canadian Cyber Task Force were to respond when Latvia identified that we will probably not be able to cope with the challenge and the pace how the threat actor is targeting our infrastructure. It was around the time when Russia started their war in Ukraine. We asked for support, and in less than a month, so the war started in February 2022. On 28th of February, Latvia made a request for support, and on March 19, we had boots on the ground. People from Canadian armed forces supporting the mission of threat hunting, helping us analyze the gathered information and eventually also eradicate the presence of a threat actor. What is interesting throughout the timeline, if we look in the past and on the data that we've been able to gather throughout the threat hunting experience, it is very visible that Russia was not opportunistic, not with Baltic states, not with Ukraine. They prepared their cyber operations. So at least since 2021, sometimes even earlier, they infiltrated the systems. They stayed silent, gathered information, made sure they have persistence. And the only difference, even though the threat actor groups overlapped with what the Ukrainian colleagues observed in their country, the only difference was that in Ukraine, they supported kinetic mission. So Russian cyber threat actors acted destructively. They tried to gain probably leverage also on the field through destructive methods. For example, crippling information systems and border control and other critical infrastructure assets, including energy sector. So this way, on our side at least, we were able to react accordingly, prioritize target infrastructures accordingly, and hunt forward to eradicate the risks. So because military is involved, obviously you have to have a patch. So this is our joint patch, united in the hunt, Canada and Latvia. And I'll also explain where we are now, how we have, I think we have matured. And one measure to be how you can distinguish if the organization or practices are matured is when you are willing to share. So now I think is the point where we are willing to share with the community and give something back. So some points on technical attribution. So there are lots of different names, but mostly it's Russia. Historically, since 2006, 2007, Russian cyber operations have been dominating in this region. What is interesting finding that commercial actors like Redline Stealer and Raspberry Robin are very frequently found present on the target on those compromised systems where APTs are present from Russian side. I think that might be explained. It might be a coincidence, of course, but that might be explained by reselling the access, so initial access brokers and stuff like that. And in recent years, we also see more and more activity from actors tied to Chinese operations or People's Republic of China, and those are named Sparrow Door and Wolf Typhoon, basically targeting academic infrastructure. And I wouldn't emphasize Belarus as a separate actor because most of their operations are supported anyway by Russia, but those campaigns and actors are present here as well. A couple of tools that we rely on. This is not an advertisement slide, and I have not included everything, but this is just to demonstrate that we are always adapting. So we try to identify what are the current tools of the targeted infrastructure and try to introduce our own tools if none of them suffice, but we try to adapt constantly. So Velociraptor, Elastic Fleet, OS Query, Microsoft Sentinel, Defender for Endpoint, etc., everything works as long as we can get what we want to interrogate the systems. And you always get one that gets away. So in most cases, even very well-maintained environments, they have some mistakes. Like, you hear these arguments. I have air-gapped systems and air-gapped networks. So, but the threat hunting gives you basically a new perspective on your environment. It gives you better visibility, which is not just Excel sheets, but visibility and assessment of your environment based on data, because you interrogate the systems. So these are a couple of suggestions to enrich your threat hunting operations if you conduct any. So basically, what we try to include is also all the lols and lol bins, vulnerable drivers, etc., etc. So lol bus projects, I would recommend to just spend some time researching these, and very, very useful to make your threat hunting operations even better. And I mentioned giving back. So we have threat hunting playbook. So together with our Canadian partners, Canadian Cyber Forces, CERT.LV will be hosting hands-on training, sharing our experience on threat hunting. It will be held in Riga, October 21 to 25th. And I'd like to finish my talk with saying that my Latvia is my responsibility. And I know that my team, not only the technical team, the whole team at CERT.LV, they know why they go to job, why their work is important, that it makes an impact. So, mana Latvia, mana atbildība. Thank you.
Thank you, Varis. Thank you for such an inspiration in the end, but also thank you for loads of information and also the opportunity to learn and the training that you're organizing. So this is, we'll put it here, okay?
Okay.
For a while, so because we have several questions. If you in the audience also have a question, just raise your hands at some point. Yes, I see you. We'll prepare for your question. Let me read some from the digital platform. So, how can an organization apply for threat hunting services provided by CERT.LV?
So in most cases, in cooperation with National Security Authority, we identify those targeted infrastructures, but they also can apply. In most cases, it's public sector and critical infrastructure, but recently more and more also private sector, which is involved providing those critical services.
And they're not in the scope that you mentioned as identified, so they have to apply then, I guess.
Not exactly.
Okay.
So this is where our cooperation with MOD, with the Ministry of Defense, is very, very useful, because they monitor the scope and help us target the right choices.
All right. What are the primary IOC sources for threat hunt?
Well, the threat hunt itself, I mean, the experience throughout the threat hunt, it builds an IOC catalog for yourself, but also exchanging the information. This is why this kind of event is very, very useful. Exchanging the information between global certs is essential.
Right. What are the typical ways how attackers get into systems?
Well, it differs. I mean, if you have an office environment like a corporate network, it might be a spear phishing, like Robert mentioned with botnets, delivered through email and other channels. If you host some systems exposed on the internet, like web pages, wiki, FTP servers, etc., VPN gateways, very popular recently. So this is also a gateway where threat actors could...
It works both ways, like
exactly. Unfortunately, every now and then.
All right. There's a question, how can I detect if someone is using my device as a middle device to do an attack on other people?
Well, you have to monitor it closely.
How do you do that? Like, watch it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Just take a look.
Just take a look.
But seriously,
funny guy.
This is why we have this idea of application for DNS firewall. So you'll have a chance to install it very, very soon, and
free of charge.
Free of charge.
No strings attached.
No strings attached.
Maybe. There's a question in the audience. Yes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So my name is Rigards. I'm Deputy Director of Cyber at Luminor Group. So I actually have two questions, if you don't mind, but I think it should be quick for you. So the first one, when it comes to the deception environments, which you mentioned, is my assumption correct that it's just a larger scale and fancier honeypot approaches?
You might say so, yeah. So you have to build an environment where if the attacker lands, they have an interest. Domain name, for example, if they target MFA, domain for Active Directory looks like the MFA. The user has some files, emails, and other stuff that looks like legit user of the system, right? And then they have some time to explore. Eventually, if they're good enough and they understand it's a deception environment, but throughout that period, you have gained enough knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, then my assumption was essentially correct. And the second one, so you briefly touched upon an approach of counter-hacking, if you will, and you very quickly touched upon it. But if you could elaborate, how does it look in terms of the law? So as we know, unsolicited hacking is against the law. But if you counter-hack an APT, if you will, how does it look for lawyers, if you will?
First of all, I'm not a lawyer and not a diplomat.
Luckily.
Luckily. But there are practices where certain countries can legally conduct offensive operations and active cyber defense if they see they are being targeted. Latvia is just getting there. So this is my answer.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Very diplomatic. Right. Any more questions in the audience? I have a very personal question. Have you thought about your given name, Varis?
Yeah.
Is it because you can?
Yeah. You know,
It's
I
really
always have to
unbelievable.
prove that, yeah.
Because the perception, I mean, these last 20, 30 minutes is just that you can.
When I started school, you know, I was asking my parents, why?
And now you're thankful.
Yeah, I'm thankful. That's
nice. Nice story. Thank you so much. Thank you for the service and the socks.